Families, we are your elementary counselors here for our second episode of our feeder pattern podcast. It's kind of a tongue twister to say sometimes. So we are in our second episode. We are going to talk about a few different things. We're going to keep the same layout that we did last time. We're going to go around and all introduce ourselves so that you can continue to get to know our names and where we're at, and that you can kind of keep track of who's where and where your kiddo is and get to know that particular counselor. We're going to have our guidance lesson spotlight where we talk about what we're each doing in guidance lessons throughout the month of November. And then we're going to do a student wellness spotlight as well as share some resources with y'all. So I will start with an introduction. My name is Caroline Hinson. I am the school counselor at Etheridge Elementary.
Hello, my name is Anna Amaya. I am one of the school counselors at Peters Colony Elementary.
I am Allison Bostick. I'm one of the counselors at Peters Colony Elementary.
Hey,
I'm Sarah.
Blooper. Go, Jasmine.
Hey y'all, I'm Jasmine Moore. I'm the school counselor at Morningside Elementary.
That's you, Sarah.
I'm Sarah Metcalf. I am the counselor at BBO Elementary.
Like, I am Beth McWilliams. I am at Kamey Elementary, and the kids know me as Miss Mac.
And I am Laura Norton, and I am the counselor at Memorial Elementary.
Well, parents and families, we hope y'all enjoyed listening to our first episode. You can go back and listen to that. We now are on Spotify, so fancy. So you can follow us along there and get updates on when we release episodes. Our goal is to release a few more throughout the school year to share about what we were doing throughout the year in your kiddos' classrooms and in our school building. So our first little section we're going to talk about today is our guidance lesson spotlight. In the month of November, a lot of us are focusing on post-secondary planning, college and career readiness, because it is GenTX month in the state of Texas. So what that is GenTX is short for Generation Texas. This movement connects us to each other and clarifies the steps we need to take on the path to college and career education. From taking the right classes to tests to applying to colleges and then finding the money to pay for school, remember that GenTX month is all about thinking about life after high school, making good choices to ensure you are on the right path to a bright future ahead. That's just a little blurb about what GenTX is. Now, what do y'all do in your classrooms, in your guidance lessons, in your school buildings to help promote that secondary mindset or post-secondary mindset?
I love GenTech Month. I think it's a great opportunity to expose children to not only future jobs, but even the local colleges and universities. And so I always think about I show an image of a visual aid of maybe like just different steps. Like this is your first step here, guys. You're elementary and then middle and high school, because really at the elementary level, they don't know anything beyond elementary. And so for them to even think about high school, it's like, wow, like what is that like? But then to expose them to beyond that, it's sometimes mind blowing for the littles. So I find GenTech is really fun. And so one of the ways that I incorporated at Peters Colony for the littles is really exposing them to like the local colleges. And so I know Ms. Henson is wonderful about putting together like a spreadsheet for us of virtual tours. And so I love using that piece, but also like, hey guys, did you know that every college has a mascot? Did you know that you can live at the college? The best part is when I ask, okay, who wants to stay at home and who wants to go move into a dorm? No one wants to leave mom and daddy. So they're like, no, we're going to stay home with mommy and daddy. But at least they know that that's an option and something to get excited about. So really it's for me, the littles, it's more of an exposure, something new, something different.
I agree
even
with you. Go ahead, Alice.
even the olders at Peters Colony, they love learning about their options later on in life. They also love to answer those questions. Do you want a car? Do you want a phone? Do you want a house? Do you want a TV? And they're like, yes. So preparing for later on gets exciting for them as they think about being able to provide these things for themselves. They also love doing like the career interest inventories and learning about different jobs that may fit in with their natural talent, skills, and abilities. And every year I do a different one with third grade, fourth grade, and fifth grade, so I don't see the same one every time. But they are surprised every year. It's like, oh, I matched up with this last year, but this year I matched up with this. And that is one of the things that we talk about too, that they are growing and changing so much. So what may have been their ideal job or their career choice last year may not be what they're interested in this year. And just exposing them to as many possibilities as we can just really helps open their minds and open those doors for them.
We do a lot of similar things. A lot of what we do at BBO and is just trying to expose our kiddos to what's out there. Because, you know, growing up in your own home, you see what your parents do and you see how your parents got there. But we don't have a whole lot of exposure to life outside of that. And so just trying to expose all of our kiddos to all of the possibilities that are out there, kind of like Allison said, to connect them with their strengths. Every year, that's kind of what we focus on, is helping them to identify their strengths. And we talk about intellectual humility, being able to identify your strengths, but also recognizing where your weaknesses are and that those are opportunities for growth because we all have different strengths and we're all working on different things. And so we really try and find what their strengths are. And we do kind of like some strength finder things with our younger ones. And then with our older ones, I do kind of a Myers-Briggs type personality test so they can really identify what their strengths are. And they can also see what other people's strengths are. And they can see that we need everybody's strengths to be able to work together and to support each other and to grow from that.
Yeah, that's awesome. And one thing that I try to point out to the kiddos as well when I'm doing these guidance lessons is that there are many adults in our school building, and we all got there in a very different way. Nobody has the same path to how they got to Etheridge to be a faculty member. And I really encourage them to try to ask the teacher, their own teacher, or the teachers around them, like, how did you end up here? What was your story? And I kind of do a little interview with the teachers, the classroom teachers, at least, you know, when I'm in their room for guidance lesson, about like, why did they choose their school? How far away was it from their home? Did somebody help them apply for college? You know, different things like that, because it's what you like Sarah said, you know, you see what your parents did, but that's not the only way to get there. And I try to point out, you know, even all of us, we all started out as teachers, but that's not what we're doing anymore. And so we used that to make a decision to further our career, and it's okay to change that. And I also kind of use my husband as an example too, because his degree is secondary education and he works at a golf course. And so you don't necessarily have to use the degree that you get for the, you know, for what it is. It's okay to change that. And a lot of times what employers want to see is that you have the skills to go to college, that you have that commitment, that you can, you know, have that grit and achieve something in that way. And so there's a lot of different pathways to get where you want to go. And I think it's important for kiddos to see that. And I think it's important too for kiddos to understand, like, I can make a choice and I don't have to stick with it for forever. I can make a choice and then I can change that. I can do more school. I can change career paths. It doesn't have to be like, this is what I do for the rest of my life. Because I think that is a little overwhelming sometimes to kiddos, especially when it seems like such a far off thing.
That's what we talk a lot about, risk taking and taking that risk to, you don't have to stay on the same path. The path may change, and taking that risk to go on a new path as you're going through your education or through life in general and things changing. So we do the same thing. My littles do the career day, like the typical career day where you just see a whole lot of different things. But my olders listen to people who took different paths, and they are nowhere near what they started out in college doing or wanting to be. So,
which that is a great transition into our plug for our career days, because families and parents, each one of us host some sort of a career day that looks different on each one of our campuses, that has sometimes different themes to it at sometimes different times of the year. But if you have a job that you would like to share, we would love to have you come. We are always looking for different types of careers, different people to come. You can, talk to your own kiddo's class, you can talk to somebody else's class. It can be whatever it looks like at that campus. But we would love to have a variety of careers to introduce our kiddos to, whether you think that your career is interesting or not. The kiddos love to hear about it. They just like to hear from somebody new. They just like to hear different things. And we can, if you're worried about that or anxious about, sharing to kiddos, because you say like, oh, I don't like to, speak in front of people, or I don't like to, that's not my gifting to talk to kids. We can help coach you through it. So just putting a little, plug out there for our career days. I know ours is in January. Does anyone else want to share specifically when theirs is? Etheridge has ours in January.
Memorials is usually in March, right before spring break. So make sure, parents and anyone listening, that you go onto the Volley website and get approved now.
Mhm.
You must be Volley approved, and that's just the volunteer system through Louisville ISD. But like Caroline said, we can definitely coach you through it, give you pointers, give you tips. We'll be there for every step of the way.
Amy
Ours
had
is
ours in
usually
October, so
in the spring.
Mhm.
And kind of like Caroline was saying, parents, please don't discount your career and think like, oh, the kids wouldn't be interested in this. No, it is all about exposure, showing them all the things that are out there that they could potentially want to be involved in.
Mhm.
And I agree with Sarah. I think exposure, is just our primary focus. Like we do have the littles, we have K through 5. But what I tell my students all the time in Morningside, my job is to help remove a barrier. So I want them to learn about as many colleges as possible, as many of the terms and the vocabulary as possible, many as jobs as possible. So when they get older, it's easier for them, And so what we're doing is just trying to remove a barrier and provide these opportunities. So when they're in that age where the decision making is crucial, there's a lot of things they already know. They already know that, loans are available or grants are available, or I could be this or this because, hey, when I was in elementary school, I learned about this really cool career and I've been thinking about that. Or I know that there's community college or 4-year college. So we just love having y'all partner with us so we can provide this opportunity for the students that we all love and care about.
It's a you don't know what you don't know situation. And
Mhm.
so just whatever we can expose them to, we want to have that opportunity for them.
Yeah. And really too, it's, I think, about just getting them to have some forward thinking, to
Yeah.
kind of get outside of their self, this is me, this is my, world. I'm kind of the center of it, to thinking about what does my future look like? What does that look like, in a few years? What does that look like long term? And helping kind of establish some of that forward thinking at, a young age. So if anybody else have anything else for post-secondary GenTX, career day, college, anything like that they want to share?
Can we just give a quick shout out to our community members, because they are always so supportive. The Colony
Mhm.
Police Department, the Colony Fire Department, anyone that works over City Hall. We appreciate you so much and always look forward to working with you year after year.
Yes, we're very thankful for the community that we live in and support and sharing about their jobs. A lot of those people are very willing to come to all of our schools every year. So sometimes multiple times a year. Let's go ahead and transition to our student wellness spotlight. We were going to talk about two things today. We wanted to talk about self-awareness and self-management. We'll start out with self-awareness. If someone wants to just briefly explain what that is, and then we can talk about how we develop that within our guidance lessons, within our schools, and then also how parents can kind of help develop that and foster it at home.
Well, there's a lot of stuff out there, kind of a buzzwords on the emotional intelligence and what self-awareness, especially as, people are looking for jobs and employers are asking, about self-awareness. And so part of self-awareness is not just looking at yourself and reflecting on your internal stuff by yourself. Part of it is being willing to take feedback. And that's really hard. A lot of times we'll ask kids, what's something you need to work on? We're talking about strengths and weaknesses earlier. And they'll be like, nothing. And you're like, you have nothing you need to work on? They're like, no. And we're like, nothing that you could get a little bit better? They're like, no. And, that's something that a lot of kids do say, and unfortunately some adults say too. But, we, as lifelong learners, we know we're all always need to be growing and need to be reflecting and need to be looking at our practices and doing what's best for children. And we need to help children cultivate that so that they can be successful in life too.
Well, and start practicing now when they're younger so that as they get to be adults, they have that already built in intrinsically, because I think that that's where we as grown-ups struggle with having self-awareness, because we never had time to practice it. And so now we're having to relearn how to be more self-aware. And if we can get them at their foundation, then it's like with any other skill, the more practice you get, the better you are at it.
And I think parents have a big opportunity to kind of model that for kids, and show them their own self-awareness or moments where there's a lack thereof, and say, "Ooh, this was really hard for me, and this is how I handled it. And maybe this wasn't the right way to handle it," and just kind of letting them into your world and walking through that with them. Obviously, in a responsible manner. You don't want to share anything that's too big for them, but just letting them see you live that.
I think it's all about empathy, right? Understanding how the other person feels. At least like that's to me the focal point when they're little, especially when they have a conflict. It's like, okay, well, I can acknowledge and validate how you feel. Now let's think about how your friend feels. And so then it's like, oh, eye-opening, like, oh, you're right. My friend also has feelings, and were my words hurtful? Were my actions hurtful? So again, it's a whole nother layer of just of self-awareness, not just yourself but others around you.
Well, and that external self-awareness, people who are good at that tend to be better at showing empathy and taking others' perspectives. We were talking about careers before and interests, and part of that self-awareness is also internal self-awareness. And how do we see our values and our passions, and how do we impact others? But those people who are higher on internal self-awareness and are asking themselves the what am I doing, what can I do to improve this situation, they have a higher satisfaction in jobs. And so getting them to ask those important questions like, what am I good at? They have a hard time with that one too. Not just what can I do differently, but what am I actually good at? And so having those conversations, starting those conversations at least, can really help steer them in the right direction for long-term success.
And I think self-awareness is a really good precursor for self-management. We have to know what we're feeling before we understand, how we manage it. And I think a lot of times on the elementary level, we spent so much time with self-management, just helping the kids manage their feelings and identifying their feelings and having that emotional vocabulary, and then figuring out, okay, I'm feeling this way. Like, what am I going to do with that feeling now? But one of the first steps is just the ability to recognize and identify the emotions. And then from there, realizing, okay, this is how I'm going to manage or cope with that emotion as well.
And what part did I play in that emotion coming up? Like, what was my part, instead of just pointing the fingers, kind of having that self-awareness to understand I'm angry, but what were all the pieces, not just what happened to me.
Yeah, which is a good point, Beth. I was going to say, I think something that we probably all find ourselves trying to coach kids through as they, develop in our schools is how to take ownership. It's hard to admit when we're wrong. It's hard to say like, yeah, I did play a part in that. Like, yeah, I got in trouble for this, and I don't necessarily agree with the way the teacher handled it, but I also like maybe wasn't the most respectful. And that's hard for kids to realize. It's hard for them it's hard for adults to own up to our own mistakes, which goes back to, I think, what was Sarah was saying too about modeling that for your kiddos is a huge way to help develop that at home, but also like understanding that it's okay to make those mistakes. It's okay to learn from them. This is how I can own up to it. This is how I can take responsibility for it. This is how I can learn and grow and develop from it. That's a hard thing to foster in kiddos sometimes.
I have a whole lesson that I do with our kids about owning their choices. And that's a big piece of what I talk about is that it garners so much more respect for you whenever you can own your stuff and to admit when you're wrong. And I talk about how the adults in my life, and myself included, that it just humanizes you and it makes you more accessible and it makes people trust you more when you can just own when you mess up, because we all do. Everybody makes mistakes. What matters is that we figure out how to move forward.
Well,
I
and
think
phrasing that question as a what instead of a why, research shows that the why question is virtually unreliable and doesn't accomplish the task. Um, so when we ask why, we're not going to get an accurate response, but asking what. So instead of why did you do that, asking what happened and what part did you play and what steps can we take moving forward to help improve the situation.
I agree, Allison, and also think that as adults and especially as parents, taking the trouble out of it,
Yeah.
as kids are learning. I think in my generation it's a little bit different. We're just trying to be new and improved on our parenting skills, but many times when kids come to me, the first thing that they ask is, "Am I in trouble?"
Right.
So that limits, the truth telling portion or the ownership portion because they think there's going to be a consequence for their mistake. Now, I'm definitely not on the mode where kids shouldn't have consequences. That's definitely not me. If anyone knows me as a mom, that's not how I roll.
Right.
But I am having to be cognizant of the times where this should truly be a learning piece. Where okay, I understand. Thank you for taking ownership. Ownership. This happened and I can give you grace to learn. But however, the next time, now you've learned, now we got it, we've walked through it, we've processed it, and the next time I'm going to hold you accountable. So taking the trouble piece out and giving them an opportunity to learn in a safe space, and then telling them, well, the next time you will be held accountable. I think that's a good way to kind of piece in that self-management and that self-awareness without them leaning toward being dishonest or not taking ownership of what they've done.
Spot on.
We have
I
we
agree.
have to create environments where it's okay for these kids to fail
Mhm.
and know that they can get back up and keep going.
Mhm. Yeah, for sure. And with that, like get back up and keep going kind of ties into that self-management piece as well. Like they're aware of what they're going through and then can help manage those emotions, like using those healthy coping skills to help navigate what they're feeling and help move through it instead of just sit in it or ignore it, which is hard for kiddos to do sometimes. Anybody else have anything to kind of touch on or share on with self-awareness or self-management?
I think that they hit the nail on the head when they said, we are their role models. And so whether it's driving in the car and us feeling frustrated because of traffic, like they're watching us and they're listening. And so, how we choose to handle that, is what they're learning. So, we do our best to teach them at school. And, we hope that that's also part of an extension at home is just every day, just the conversations and the role modeling for them. You'd be surprised what they pick up.
And Anna, to piggyback on that, I was thinking about that. We're doing our best at school, and we know you guys are doing your best at home. And I think that's where that partnership between school and home is so important. And that if your child comes home with something that doesn't sound right or you disagree with, that modeling is not to badmouth everything about the situation in front of the child. I think Sarah mentioned, things they weren't too big for. Having that conversation, if you can be upset with the school or the teacher, but really watching what you're saying, because like Anna said, your kiddos do pick up on things. And so if we're saying, well, that teacher's just wrong and so dumb, and that was the stupidest thing I've ever heard the school do, unfortunately those things come back in and those kids repeat that kind of stuff. And it really, we're all partners. We want our kids to be successful. Like, we want them to grow and be resilient. And sometimes in our efforts to fix things for them, we're actually taking away their resilience and their grit, because we're sending the message, hey, I'm going to fix this because I don't think you can do it. So I think we have to be very careful in our language with that too, because we want our kids to build that independence, but while still taking care of them, but we don't want to cut them off and not give them that ability or that confidence.
Yeah, for sure. That's a great point. It's hard not to jump to conclusions sometimes. And we want to make sure we're having those healthy conversations with our kiddos and kind of teasing some of those things out before we do jump to those conclusions. And like you said, partnering with the school to help kind of figure out what actually happened. So as we kind of wrap up our second episode, we have some resources that we'd like to share. One of our resources we wanted to share was our social worker that works with our feeder pattern. Her name is Brittany Waddell. Unfortunately, she could not make our podcast today, but she did send me a little blurb that I wanted to share with y'all about what she does and a little bit about herself and the resource that she can provide to you and your family. So she has been in the district for 6 years. She is also an LISD alumni. She went to Polzer for elementary school, as well as Hebron for high school. She went to UNT for her Bachelor of Social Work and then got her Master's of Social Work at UTA in Arlington. And then for her role on each of our campuses, she supports all 14 elementary schools that feed into the Colony and Hebron high schools. Her role on the campus is to help support the counselors address the needs for specific things to their campus. So for example, she said that this could look like meeting with individual students, doing groups, helping families get connected to resources, supporting McKinney-Vento families, and supporting parent engagement initiatives. In addition, she can also provide support to the district as a whole through initiatives such as back to school fair, parent cafes, Coats for Kids, and coordination of holiday assistance. She also collaborates with community partners and helps to coordinate services between outside agencies and families within the district. One of the other questions I asked was, how do students and families access her or get her resources or use her as a resource? So she said the best way to access her is to reach out to their campus counselors. So reach out to one of us. The counselor will then put in a referral, and she will reach out to assess the family's needs and provide resources and further assistance. Some other additional things that she can help with are basic needs resources, individual counseling, needs specific groups, as well as support for our McKinney-Vento families or families who are homeless. So it's a little just blurb about what Brittany does in each of our schools. She is a great resource. If your family is in need of anything, you could, like I said, reach out to one of us and we will put you in touch with her. The other resources we wanted to talk about were holiday resources. Does anybody have anything specific that they want to highlight or make sure our families know about for the upcoming holiday season?
I was actually just adding a few things to my newsletter the other day, so let me just pull that up. Hope for Our City, which is housed I'm just rambling. Hope for Our City is partners with a few different churches, and there is a registration form where you can register to get Thanksgiving groceries. I think it fills out fairly quickly, and then the pickup is on Sunday, November 24th. So you can reach out to your counselor about that. And then on Thanksgiving Day, Joe's Pizza is sponsoring a kind of soup kitchen offering Thanksgiving dinner to anyone. It's a first come, first serve situation. It's free and it's hosted at North Dallas Family Church, 1700 South Josie Lane. And if you want more information from that, reach out to your counselor. We have the flyers for that.
Mm-hmm. And as we kind of gear up for the holiday season, Thanksgiving, Christmas, if you or your family is in need of anything, please reach out. Even if even if it says the deadlines have passed, often we can work with different community resources to make sure your needs are met. So please let us know. In addition to that, the LISD Angel Tree is about to go live for adoptions. So if your family or you work with a corporation that would be willing to adopt angels. Those will go live to the community on Wednesday, I believe, Wednesday, November 6th. So if you have the means and are able to adopt one of those angels, I know that they would really appreciate it. Those families are so thankful for that. So if you have the ability to do that or want to share that out to people that you know, that's always wonderful as well. The
And
last,
one of the
Go ahead,
things I
Desmond.
want to share about Angel Tree is there's many ways to support. So if you don't have the financial means, if you can just share it on your social media platforms, put it in your church announcements, email it to your coworkers, getting the word out there is just important as a kid being adopted. So if you're not able to do it, that we totally understand that, but someone might have it on their heart to do so. There's also opportunities for you to gift wrap. All the gifts that the parents received come wrapped. So there's on the Angel Tree link, there's opportunity for you to sign up to gift wrap, and they also take Zelle and Venmo. So if you're like, I don't have time to go out and shop for a student, if you want to just shoot over whatever you can, that's a very quick and easy way. To be perfectly honest, I don't always have time to like adopt or, maybe the means to, but I will try to just do whatever financial donation I can because it's quick and easy and every little bit counts.
yes, for sure. They will also accept gift cards, I believe, as well.
Yes, that's true.
Because they will go and shop for any angels that have not been adopted at a certain point. So it's a good plug for that too. If you have middle schoolers or high schoolers too that need community service hours, wrapping gifts is a great way to do that. So a little plug for that as well. The last little resource we wanted to make sure that you and your families know about are the listening tours that are happening across the district for the potential school closures. So for the Colony High School feeder pattern, our listening tour will be on Wednesday, November 13th at 6 p.m. in the Colony High School Performing Arts Center. So please make sure you're attending those, asking your questions, informing yourself on what's happening in our district, especially within our own feeder pattern. So any other additional resources anybody wants to throw out?
We hope you have a wonderful break coming up soon here, right? Couple of weeks. And we are always available. Reach out by phone, by email. We always look forward to partnering with you.